What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Tectonic Takes. We're back after our big win, big 4-1 win at LAFC. I didn't think that it would happen, I'll be honest, but super happy to be sitting here today with my co-host Devin. Devin, how you doing?
I didn't expect any of this to happen either. As you can tell, from different podcasts, my voice is partially gone. I went down to LA to watch the game myself. Had a really good time. Screamed my lungs off. Winning 4-1, you got to scream at every goal. Um, it was one of the best away experiences I've ever had. And I was there in the MLS Cup win. I was in attendance in LA when we beat Chicago Fire. And that's pretty close up there. I'm not gonna say that a regular season game was close to uh, winning an MLS Cup for the Earthquakes, but it's on that emotional level of beating your rivals away in their own home stadium. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. We're back here now. Abram, what did you think of the win?
I mean, I thought a lot about the win. Very, definitive performance. I don't think there was anything that went wrong. There was no, there's nothing we could look at and be like, okay, well, we could do, so much better here. I don't think anyone is blaming Reed Roberts for that own goal. I think that's the only blemish on this game, and I, 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 if I was like a time traveler, I wouldn't instruct him to not put his leg out there. You don't know what happens at that point. You have to go for the ball. I don't know, and sometimes that happens, and that's unfortunate. But nobody's upset with him, and obviously he has been performing really well this season. So you earn yourself one of those. If you defend really, really, really well, you only concede 3 goals in 8 games, something like that. You get like 5 clean sheets. You get to score an own goal, I guess, is what we're saying here on the Tectonic Takes podcast. That's the Tectonic Take of the day. You get to score an own goal if you if you don't let any in the other games. Um, but no, a fantastic performance. I am curious, Devin, what year was it where we won that MLS Cup against Chicago?
You're putting me on the spot because I think it was 2003, but I can't remember if it was 01 or 03. I was very young at the time, and
Right, I was gonna
I should
how
know those
young were
answers,
you?
but I was extremely. I was born in '97, so I was either about 4 years old or six.
Yeah,
So
that the best six. Yeah, that's very young. I don't think I would. Obviously, it's a special moment, but more so of hearing about it rather than the actual memory you're forming yourself. But yeah, very glad you were able to get to this game. Uh, I unfortunately was not able to go. I just wasn't feeling the trip to LA. Just way too tired. I don't know if you guys can hear, but I've been sick for the past week. Um, so that's been a struggle to deal with. But this was a wonderful game. We saw an assist from Nico Shakaris, 2 goals from Useni Buddha, 1 goal from Timo Werner, and an additional assist for Timo Werner. Uh, this being the first game where Timo has scored, do you think that that's going to help not just his image in the eyes of Quakes fans who might be disappointed with him so far, but also just help him, gain the momentum to get more goals in the future?
it's funny because the broadcast studio had mentioned that Werner, and we'd mentioned that, or someone had mentioned this to Bruce, but the broadcast studio had mentioned that Timo Werner was not a superstar player. And then Werner goes out, gets 1 goal, 1 assist. And then at the very end of the game, they mentioned that Werner is a superstar player. We know he's got, the talent and the skill to, produce many more numbers and tallies for this team. We kind of thought that he was going to start the Earthquakes season maybe a little shakier than what he's producing right now. Uh, but he's showing that he's ready to compete with the highest level teams in this league. And I really enjoy Timo Werner's presence, despite my questions and criticisms of him in the way that like his absence gives us a lot of goals, but here he is in the starting lineup, and we've got 4 goals in the game. So it seems like they've really adapted to Timo Werner's style, and they're kind of reaping the rewards in that way. And Timo's one of those guys where he makes the opposition defense reconsider every action and move in every step of every play. He attacks the defense. He makes them worried. He makes them stutter step. In any way, he gives himself the advantage by pressing the opposition as fast as he can, finding that open space, collecting a bunch of defenders to him, which opens up to other players, as we saw, somewhat with Oseni Buda. He's on the left-hand side. LAFC shifts over to that side and leaves Buda wide open. It's those kinds of plays that Timo Werner's just presence alone as a historical trophy winner in Europe will do to opposition teams. They kind of forget about other players, and that's exactly what he did. That's exactly what happened. He attacked the defense on his goal, made him a little bit worried. He fell to the ground, completely missed the ball, and he was able to slot it past Hugo Lloris. And then the first goal, or the first assist, he just ran down the wing, collected a defender, and then crossed it over to an open Buda. It's very routine for Werner, but it's those type of routine plays is what's needed to overcome a league dominant figure like LAFC. Did you see something similar, Abram?
Yeah, I mean, you were saying that as routine. It's routine in like what we expect from a European caliber player. Like those things, you need to do them well to be at even an okay standard in the European leagues. And people want to forget. I'm looking at his transfer value across his career. In December of 2020, he was worth 100 million. Like he was a big deal at one point, right? And he became a meme. But just the standard of play is elevated when Timo Werner's on the pitch. That's not to say that we don't play well without him. I think that Footy Dad Eric put it really well when it's like we don't play worse without him, but we do play better with him, right? And just to make the statement like, oh well, we're better off without him when he's not playing, the team looks better or whatever. We look really good with or without him, and that's great. But it's overly simplistic in my opinion, and not really taking into account how good he has been. When you kind of disregard him like that, in 276 minutes, he has 1 goal, 3 assists. In 2 starts, he has 4 goal contributions. This is really good, right? And because we're having such a good season, we're already spoiled, and we're like, well, let's put Scan, like, cause that's who the backup is. It's either Timo Werner or Jack Scan, and having Buddha on the left and then Scan on the right. And I love Scan. I think Scan provides a lot of value to the team. I've said this time and time and again. But there's a reason we brought in Timo Werner, and it's this caliber of performance. For him, none of that was like, he didn't make it look super hard. I think that there is more in the tank for him. I do think that, there was an opportunity or two where I was like, can you shoot though? Like, could you like be the man and I don't mean like be a man. I just mean be the man, like be the DP that we brought you in to be. And
I think you were referring to that one left-footed opportunity where he was on kind of like a break past the defense and just tried to cut back to his right. Is that the one you were thinking about?
Something like that. Yeah, there was an opportunity where I was like, you have to shoot, like you have to test the keeper or something. There was also an opportunity against. There was two moments against Phoenix where I wish that he would have shot, and he has a good shot. We've seen it before, back when he was worth 100 million. Like he can do those things. If I'm gonna be on the opposite end of the spectrum, if I'm gonna be cynical of his performance, I think that for the goal he scored, the optimal decision is probably a pass to Judd, because maybe a better defender there gets the ball, because he totally whiffed on that tackle, right? Like, he had the angle to take the ball away, he didn't do it just because he went over the ball. Timo is very lucky in that scenario where, if he had passed the ball to Judd, then the opportunity doesn't present itself for the defender to win the ball there. Luckily, he ended up, getting the advantage in that situation and slotting it away. But that's not always going to be the case. Um,
Yeah, quick
but
interjection too on that point.
sure,
It's the reason why we call Timo, or why Timo's nickname is Turbo, because it's that very same play that you just mentioned where he turned on the Jets. Quick change of direction, which caused the defender to hesitate and to reconsider his next action or move, and that kind of threw the defender off. So when he attempted to tackle, his head was all discombobulated. And I think that gave Timo the advantage, and will continue to give Timo the advantage in future games.
yeah, the just the sonic boom that emulated off of Timo's shins, just as as he made that turn. No, I agree. Timo is very fast, uh, and he's only 30. He turned 30 very recently. People were surprised. I saw comments like, "Why is Timo Werner running fast?" I was like, "Well, he's Turbo Timo. Like, this has been a thing. He's a physical specimen, and he's been like this his whole career. Where, even if he's not doing well, particularly in certain scenarios, his physical numbers has always been, very good. I'm not surprised that he has become a very strong piece in the Quakes front line. I am surprised about how little it impacts in a way, like how we are still doing really well without him, which is a very good problem to have, where it's like, if he's fit, then we could beat teams like LA, but against other teams as well, we can still put up a good fight. And honestly, at this point, I'm like, are we ever gonna lose again? And I'm not trying to jinx it here, but like, we look very good, and I'm very happy with where we are at the moment. But Devin, I want to ask you, aren't you glad that we didn't go with a full strength lineup against Phoenix, where we won that game anyways because we were the stronger side, and then we would have had guys too tired to face this LA team, which were good. They had a lot of glimpses of quality, but obviously they're not full strength. But they could have hurt us in a lot of instances.
Yeah, I actually have many opinions on that, and specifically for the Phoenix game, I'm thrilled that we made a ton of lineup changes, and I'm glad that I predicted Nani would get the start before the game had even started. We recorded Monday, Wednesday they played. Nani started. He didn't have that the best game that I think he could have had, but I think it was just due to height and strength, and they were trying to utilize Nani in ways that I think we could have seen in other departments of his skill sets. Um, but that being said, yeah, we did rotate a bunch of the guys, and it showed our true character to our depth, that these 2026 substitutes who would have been like on the reserves in 2025 are stepping up and made us look like a professional soccer team versus a USL team. And I know Bruce Arena gave credit to them, but players like Jack Jasinski and Nick Fernandez all stepping up to the plate to put the ball in the back of the net, along with other players that we hadn't considered. Max Floriani getting the start as well. Those type of guys, deserve minutes, and they came out to shine versus for Phoenix Rising, and that also gave us the advantage heading into LAFC, where we rested our starters. Meanwhile, LAFC had to use their starters because they had a Champions Cup game, which they they moved on to the next round versus, I believe, Cruz Azul. Um, and it, after the conclusion of the Earthquakes versus LAFC game, I don't know why I said it like that, but the LAFC game, their head coach had made mention that it's a tight schedule, and he just kind of explained his frustrations about fixture congestion and the fact that he has to use his substitutes. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking you have one of the deepest squads in all of MLS. I don't really think you should be sitting here complaining, because we just saw you guys, head to Portland and almost walk away with at least a point. Unfortunate it was like a Wando goal at the very end, but your depth has substance, and it's a shame that he kind of has to, like, in his mindset, he's forced to think that it's either his starters or bust. Which in MLS, I mean, I kind of get it. We've had many of those moments in years past where maybe our depth didn't step up to the plate like they are this year. But at the same time, like they have a good skill set. Why not use them? But to that point, we had the advantage. Our players were ready. They were well rested, and they were in the mindset to win the game. It's an away game, but they don't care. They'll treat it as a home game as such, and they'll use the home fans to their advantage, and kind of absorb that atmosphere like it's their own, and I think that's really unique to our players. Did you get the same feeling, Abram?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with the way that we handled our squad in this stretch. So we had to win the game against Sporting Kansas City, and we want to go far in this Open Cup. Bruce has said the goal is to win it, but he's not going to say the goal is to lose it. I do believe that if the opportunity presents itself and we get far, we'll try to win it. But I think that it was probably the right call to go to the second team against Phoenix Rising here. It does become a little bit more complicated for the Minnesota game, because that's a team where they have a much better chance of beating us with their first team. Obviously, being an MLS squad, just it's very scary. It's not as scary as the alternative, which was Sacramento Republic, which even though they're a USL squad, I'm just like, I just don't want to play them. I hate playing them, just because it hurts so much more. But no, I'm very happy with how the team was rotated. Timo Werner got 45 minutes against Phoenix just to get a little bit back into fitness. I'm assuming that he had been, training and preparing for this LA match, for a while now. Thankfully, he was fit. I don't know how long he played in terms of the minutes, but he played a good chunk of it, obviously, and was very influential in that match. And obviously, if he had played more than 45 against Phoenix, that would have been a struggle, because, as many of you know, we went to 10 men in that match. And so having Timo Werner just defend for his life for another 45 minutes, that would have been unnecessary. And I know that, like, yeah, you want to have your best players on the field at all times, but you do have to. A good manager is good at managing his squad, and this is an example of where I feel that Bruce Arena got it right. I don't think he got it right all the time last season. We were, probably very vocal about that. Last season feels like, decades ago at this point, but I'm sure that we had things to say about that at the time. So today we spoke to Useni Buddha for the media availability. We're recording this a little later in the week than we usually do. But because of the game happening on Wednesday, we had Buddha for the availability on Tuesday. And I enjoy having Buddha as these for these mini presser things. I think that he's well spoken. Devin, for your question, I don't remember how you phrased it, but were you happy with the answer that you got?
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about how, the Earthquakes are going to roll into this stretch of midweek games and a heavy saturated schedule. I just wanted to kind of see where at least Buddha's head is at, as well as, maybe him talking about the rest of the players or the rest of the team. I had asked him Well, actually, I started by mentioning that we're on a 5 game win streak. If we had United Strand, he would have had a haircut by now. But um, I asked him about the 5 game win streak, and what does that do to the players' mindset with Austin FC and St. Louis City coming up, both weak teams, and how they may handle their potential complacency. And I think he answered it really well, and he said we're going to take this one game at a time. We just look at the next game and see how we can handle the opposition. And I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but it's kind of like my takeaway of how Buddha answered it. It's not necessarily just the words, but it's also like the intention of the message. He said he's just one game at a time, and also just look at what he can do versus each opponent, and how he can utilize his skill set against individual matchups and whatnot. So I for that reason alone, I really look forward to the Austin match. But by the time this is placed publicly, the Austin match will have concluded, and we'll be preparing for the St. Louis game. But I wanted to go back to Oseni's performance versus LAFC, and looking here on the shot conversion rate versus LAFC, it's on MLSsoccer.com is a 4, the highest conversion rate in among both teams. Obviously, 2 goals is a ridiculously good stat versus the highest, one of the most dangerous teams in the league and one of the most dangerous goalkeepers, because LAFC fans were sending praises to Hugo Lloris for not conceding a single goal all season. And then, here we go scoring 4 goals and Oseni Budo is half of them. I think it takes a lot of courage, and you enjoyed this part specifically, Abrams, so I'm going to send this over to you after this little segment. But both of these goals that Oseni Budo scored were near post.
Yeah. Both of them were really good finishes. I'm looking at the first goal in the 53rd minute. It has an XG of .06. That's a very fine margin. And it's just because of the situation that Werner plays Buddha in. That's the only reason that goal is kind of possible, because of where Lloris is having to get across the entire goal, and is beating at that post. That's a goal where it is very fine margins. It's on Buddha to pick apart that gap, but you can't look at it, or at least I don't look at it as like, okay, well, Lloris, you got to do better there. Buddha's second goal, though, where Nico set up that play perfectly, where he looked over. You guys, if you've seen the highlights, you know what I'm talking about. When he received the ball, he looked over his shoulder. Is Buddha there? Yes. He goes straight towards the goal. He doesn't look at Buddha another time until after he plays it back to Buddha. He waits until the left back commits and goes toward Preston Judd, and then he plays it over to Buddha, who just sets it up for himself. And then you're like, okay, well, this is a difficult chance, because Lloris is much more set in this opportunity. But I think what makes this goal go in is just how unexpected it is. Where anyone of the sane mind facing Hugo Lloris is gonna go to the back post. Buddha just
No.
that's
He
not
said
him.
no.
He is going near post with this, and let me look at the XG for that real quick.
Yeah, I kind of want to touch up on that goal too, because we've been singing Nico's praises since basically the start of the season, and how well he's done. But there's no but. I mean, if you take a look at that second Buddha goal, Nico draws in basically 3 defenders, opens up space, I think, on both sides for Jack Skane on the left and Oseni Buddha on the right, and he chose to play it to Buddha. But it's that hold-up play that I'm talking about, that specific skill set that I was just praising Werner for, that Nico is now taking into account with, per game. And I think that's the part that Werner's rubbing off on Nico is he's taking the defenders on, he's holding up play, waiting for the right moment, and then plays it over to Buda, who's wide open because Nico is able to, he's so dangerous that LAFC players now consider him a threat, and three players have to mark him, opening up space for others. And that's why I think Nico is just so unique for this team and in the league. And he's considered one of the more dangerous players of the league with, 6 points, I believe, on the season, maybe more now. It's those types of things where you're making a big name for yourself, and you can finally open up players who may not be recognized or as recognized by other clubs or league analysts as Oseni Buda. And that's not to say Buda shouldn't be recognized. It's just technically he's not as recognized as Nico and Timo. And that's what you want to utilize, that open space. And sure enough, we did that. And I'm really impressed with Nico's performance and I guess just overall all of the attackers that we have, because we've been saying it over and over again, and the players have been saying it over and over again. This is a proper team, everyone's in it to win it together, and you see that. And I think that specific goal that we're talking about with Buda's second kind of exemplifies the entirety of the season so far. With just goals can come from anyone. And it came from those two in particular.
Yeah, so I looked at the opportunity for Buda's second goal, and it is a .10 xG. Not very high xG. Massive overperformance for Buda. I think he gets .16 xG for those two shots, and to get two goals out of that is really big. Just, a testament to how well placed they were. And, even though Lloris goes to the back post, like he kind of shifts because he assumes it's going to his right. It's hit so hard that he doesn't have time to react. And even though the ball is so close to him in proximity, there's nothing he could do. Great shot by Buda. And that's why, he's been, perennially starting this season. I don't know if he started every game. I believe he has. So that'll be 8 starts for him. And it's very well deserved, in my opinion. I think that, we've had things to say about his, general chance creation and stuff like that. But when Nico is top of the league for chance creation with 32, I believe, at time of the recording, the chance creation is coming from elsewhere, and if he's going to be able to pop up and make goals come out of nowhere consistently, then I say that we still, keep running with him if he's still going to be able to do this. And also, he had a really big part to play in the own goal that LAFC scored, where he was the one to pop it up across the goal to Jamar Ricketts in the first place. Jamar plays across down to Nico, and Porteous, I believe is how it's pronounced, tries to clear it out, but ends up in an own goal, which is very great for us. Another situation where, Buda came up really big.
Abram, did you hear the Soccer Wise podcast? I think that was released today or yesterday.
I didn't get a chance.
So I believe specifically, Bolaru had a. There were many Earthquakes players that were mentioned, and there's one in particular after Bolaru. But I want to talk about Bolaru's performance for this game. He has 2 assists. One of the assists, he received the ball from an errant LAFC pass and nutmegs the defender or the midfielder, and then sends the ball over to Timo Werner, who then scores the goal. And then the other one, I can't remember.
Actually, that
exactly.
one, he gets a hockey assist on that one. That's the one where Timo crossed it to Buda.
That's
But
right.
then he gets the direct assist on Timo Werner's goal.
Yeah, the hockey assist, I'm still like, I'm glad they have it, but I'm still like confused why it's not a separate category.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But anyways, thank you for the correction. It's those types of plays, that I just praised Werner for, where Bo looks for that open space and takes advantage of it. And he draws in midfielders, he draws in defenders, and opens up space for others. And I'll say that again and again just because of how important it is. Um, I was just very, very openly impressed by Bo Leroux. And I know we keep saying that we're impressed by Bo's performance, but I think it's also that storyline of Bo's history and where he came from. He came from college, he came from the draft, and then went to the Town FC or Quakes 2 for a little bit, and then joined the first team. And you don't really see those performances necessarily from guys who make it up that path. And it's not to say that they don't deserve that level of performance, but it's from guys that you don't necessarily expect it from. And Bo has really taken on a new role and responsibility and maturity. And this game versus LAFC, you could see a clear difference between young Bo and old Bo, or current Bo. He's not old, but current Bo. Um, yeah, with those two assists and geez, yeah, no shots on target. That just kind of browsing the stats here. Um, along with those two assists, he had a key pass as well. So it could have been, technically three assists, but um, yeah, just really impressed with Bo and all the midfielders who have kind of just taken up these specific roles. Um, the next player that Soccer Wise had mentioned, and I'm so glad that they mentioned his name, is Benji Kakanovic. And during the build up to this LAFC game, Abram, we had talked about the importance of Benji Kakanovic heading into this game, and how he may impact Benji, or not Benji, Denny Buwanga's performance. And if he was to shut him out, then that would be huge for the Earthquakes in mitigating shots on target and points. And sure enough, as I'm looking at the stats, Buanga didn't have a single shot. Not not even a shot on target. The only two players for LAFC who registered a shot on target were Jeremy Abobasi, who the Quakes are very very familiar with, and Heung-min Son, who registered two shots on target. So between these all these players that played, there's only three total shots on target with this high scoring, high caliber offense and midfield. You kind of expected to see more, but I think this is because of Benji Kakanovic's influence, shutting a lot of these top name players down in the league, and specifically Denny Buanga, who's one of the most lethal, if not the most lethal player apart from Lionel Messi, this league has seen in a very long time. Um, I I'm glad he's been given the praise by Soccer Wise, and maybe with consistent performances like this, I think I think the national team may have to reconsider who plays it right back in the future.
Yeah, I don't think that. I mean, I don't disagree. I think that he could do a job with the national team. I don't think he wants to, and I don't think that they want to. Just because of how stubborn the national team seems to have been lately, where they're just like, these are the players. Like Timothy Weah, he could play center back, right? And it's like, no, he can't. I know you want him to, but he can't. It's like in Finding Nemo. Like I know you want it, but you can't do it, dude. Uh, and to that point, because Timothy Weah can't play right center back, no matter how fast he runs, he can't do it. Daniel Muni can. I think Daniel Muni could actually do a genuinely good job on the national team, along with Benji Kankanovic, who has been very solid. Like it's not a normal thing to be able to do, to just like play a different position entirely, which is we do see the transition from winger to fullback, but it's more because like of the attributes that allow them to be a attacking threat coming from the back, right? So that like you don't usually see a winger become a fullback and then like he is a lockdown fullback. Like his main thing is how hard it is to get past him, and that's Benji's game. Not to say he's not good on the attack as well, but if I was to point out something about Benji, it's definitely how fast he is, how physical he is, how good in the air he is. I think he could dunk easily. I think Benji could dunk soaking wet with his vertical, genuinely. You were mentioning Bo LaRue, and I saw some stats that were very interesting that I'd like to bring up, if that's okay. Uh,
Shoot.
so we're looking at 83% successful dribbling for him. So, and that makes it look a little bit worse. He attempted 6 dribbles. He successfully dribbled 5 times. 5 passes into the final third. He was only dispossessed 1 time, and then that's only talking about his distribution. If we look at his defense, he has 1 tackle, 3 interceptions, 7 recoveries, and was only dribbled past 2 times. You know, I'm it's special what we're looking at with Bo LaRue, and it's a big part of why we've been able to overperform in a lot of people's eyes this season. Where you know this is a point I try not to make too much. Say Bo LaRue came to us on a DP contract, right? His name's Bo Lourinho. He is a Brazilian that we bought off of a big European team, and we just put him in the squad. With this kind of performance, you wouldn't question that. You'd be like, yeah, that's our DP center mid, Bo Lourinho. He looks so good. Like the way that he moves the ball, the way that he distributes, the way that he wins the ball back. Just so it's so valuable to have a player who can make an interception, make a nutmeg, and then before you know it, you are now on the counter attack. Like within seconds. Let me say it again. He made an interception, then nutmegged the guy he intercepted, and then sent us on a counter attack, a fast break. Huge. These kind of things are not normal. So obviously we're very big on Bo LaRue here, but we also just want to say why we're huge on Bo LaRue. I mentioned Daniel Mooney, very good defender in his league. He's looking like one of the better defenders in the league. And not just because the Quakes have been so solid, where I think only Seattle has only been scored on 3 times this season. I think it's us in Seattle, and a big part of that is Muni. Just with his recovery speed is incredible. I think the fastest defender period in the league, and there's only 2 players faster than him. One of them is Jamar Ricketts, who is also incredibly fast. Sorry, it's a very good position we're in right now. But can you tell us about what your perspective is on Muni? Because I think I've said about all I could. I'll bring up some stats while you're talking about him.
Yeah, I mean, as a general statement, Abram, I just want to say how nice it is to just sit here and like talk about how great our players are, and how amazing this group is as a whole. I in so many other years, you'd listen to Quakes Epicenter or you'd listen to Tectonic Takes talking about what we as a team can do better or improve. And yet here we are. We're 7-1-0, just uh, like praising everyone on the field because they just look so good. And you're talking about the lethality of each player. It's a collective group. And Daniel Muni specifically is part of that lethality mitigation team. And like, I don't know why I said team, but he's part of the mitigation on conceding goals and whatnot. And he does a really good job of it. I know that Jack Skane in one of the press conferences had explained how, speed is so crucial to this team's success, and it's just kind of underlooked, or yeah, underlooked. Um, I think it's a very accurate statement. You know, Daniel Muni used to be a fullback, I believe, in college. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he used to have a fullback role, and then, for us, played
He
center
came
back.
through at center back, and he occasionally played a CDM, but mostly was a center back. I think you might be thinking of, well, there's a few guys. Tanner Beeson, Mac Floriani played a little bit of right back. I think, what's his name? Reed Roberts, same thing. He played left back a little bit. But Muni, from what I remember, it was like, well, he's a center back out and out, and then he played some CDM because he's so good on the ball.
I think
Uh,
when he first started, he may have had a couple
he
of
did
fullback stints.
when he was first brought on, because center back is like you don't trust them right away. He
Yeah,
was put at right back, and then in his first start, I believe he got a yellow card against DC United. When his whole thing is that like his entire college career, not one yellow card, and then his first start yellow card. I believe that was during the Luchi Gonzalez days. But yeah,
yes,
definitely
yes, it
can
was.
play right back. I'm not, saying that. But you asked me about a college career. That's what I remember. If I'm wrong, if anybody from Daniel Muni's college can correct me, feel free in the comments. Also, big shout out to Dis Smiley, who is always in the comments of these videos.
Shout out Smiley.
Yeah, we appreciate your positivity and your commitment to being the first person, sometimes usually the only person to comment. And my dad watches all these videos, but even this Smiley is here supporting no matter what.
Um, yeah, I feel like there's so many things to say about Daniel Muni. Like, yes, he could play fullback. Is kind of what I'm saying. Is he has the speed
For
for it.
sure, yeah.
But he's also, gained, I think, a lot of strength in the off season, and he's able to body a lot of the big name players, and intimidate them as well. He shut down Youngmin Son. He helped shut down Denny Buwanga. He helped shut down a bunch of LAFC's attacking threats, and here we are, talking to each other, and the Quakes have what, five clean sheets in the first 8 games. That almost for our standards is unheard of, and a lot of that is attributed to Daniel Muni, and I think I'm gonna play a 60-40 game here, and I think 60% of his success is because of his speed, and 40% of his is because of his strength. But if he's giving 120% effort, I want to give that extra 20% to, his ability to make a successful tackle without conceding a yellow card or conceding a dangerous foul, anywhere in the box. And I think that's what helps uh, this team succeed, game in, game out, is to not concede those dangerous fouls. Yes, albeit Reed Roberts conceded an own goal, but it's bound to happen. This is his first full time, his first season as a full time starter, for this team, and sometimes you make mistakes in your first full season, especially in big games. But overall, he also contributed to those 5 clean sheets. Um, so yes, speed does play a factor, but I think strength does as well. And both Daniel Muni and Reed Roberts hold a lot of that, to their chest, and you know, uh, display every attribute they can, per game.
Yeah, and Danny Mooney also, I think, not just speed, not just strength, but agility. I think is a very underrated, not stat but attribute. Where if Boanga turns, Mooney turns. He is able to not just keep up with for pace, but also just he could turn on a dime, and you can't shake him. If you can't run past him and you can't outmaneuver him, what are you going to do? He's only about 6 foot, so he's not super tall, but he is very good in the air. Uh, it's like I don't know if you told me Danny Mooney the DP, I might be like, okay. Like it's not as egregious as Bolaroo probably, But like, look at these stats, okay? Uh, First of all, for his distribution, 6 passes into the final third. That's pretty good for a center back. But let's look at the defensive contributions. 1 tackle, 1 block, 6 clearances, 3 headed clearances, 1 interception, 6 recoveries, dribbled pass 0 times, 100% aerial duels won. That's a very good performance from a center back, and he is doing that game in, game out. This is not new from Muni. This is just another day at the office. Uh, Super blessed to have someone like him. Where when he came in, I was like, okay, why are we getting another center back? We have like 6. But now, he's one of 3 center backs, and he's the one where I'm like, well, don't touch him. Leave him on the pitch at all times. I don't care what happens. And that's really working out. Obviously, we have a Floriani, so 3 center backs isn't accurate. We have 4. Sorry, Flo. I apologize, but no, my point stands. Daniel Mini has been incredible this year. Um, and he's shown glimpses of this. He locked down Messi. Messi didn't score that game, and he was pissed about it. He was like that whole kerfuffle after the final whistle, where he just wouldn't let it go. Where he didn't get fouled by Muni, but he thought he did. It was a whole thing.
He scored 900. I'm sure he should be
Yeah,
okay with
you'll be fine, Messi. It was what 3-3 that game, and he had a hand to play in every single goal. Uh, yeah. Anyways, that was a while ago. You can watch our episode on that game if you're interested. But no. Super. Like you said, Devin. You mentioned that like we're talking about all our players positively. That it's a great place to be. Daniel had an amazing save. He wasn't tested too many times, but when Heung-min Son just pulled off an incredible volley off a corner kick or something, which was going top bins, and Daniel just decides, I'm Superman now, and floats over to that corner to knock it down, and then finds himself like crashing into the post, but getting up right away. Uh,
I was about to say I was terrified of the potential of like him hitting his head. We were watching the replay on the way home, like immediately after the game, and shout out Luis who was sitting next to me in the car. We had noticed how close his head was to hitting the post, and I'm like, please Daniel, you're just so fragile. If you hit the post, I'm worried you'll be out for like 4 months. Thankfully he didn't, but yeah, very close call.
we need to get that man a helmet, maybe some knee pads, some shin pads, just get him more geared up because we can't afford to lose him.
Like a Petr check.
Exactly. Not just Petr Cech, but like RoboCop, just like fully kitted out. Um, not that Earl Edwards didn't perform really well in his appearance against Phoenix. We haven't talked about Phoenix, so just a little bit of like peppering in some commentary here and there. But
Hey, shout out to the commentators for the Phoenix game. Tectonic Takes were
oh
mentioned
yeah,
twice.
that is true. A very big accomplishment for the show. We were mentioned on CBS Golasso, or not CBS Golasso, but CBS, who are hosting that broadcast. They shouted us out 2 times. One in the 43rd, once in around the 73rd. Uh, Very happy to be a part of this podcast, and moments like that, make us realize that we're not just doing this to do it, which is, sometimes it feels like that. Sometimes it feels like only you and I are the ones who see this, Devin, where we record it, we put it out, and then we don't hear about it, and we do it again the next week. Um, but, just the fact that people are watching the stuff we do, we've been trying to expand the content and do interviews and stuff like that just to see that it is resonating with people, people are watching it and gaining insight from it. That's the whole reason we do it. It's for the community. So just with that happening during the Phoenix match is just confirmation that we should keep going.
Yeah, and also more interviews are along the way. So if you haven't heard, we have a Patreon. Check out the link in the description. Join our Patreon, and you have access to exclusive content within the community. And we'll continue providing better interviews and services for you listeners.
Yeah, one of those Patreon perks is the ability to vote on the next player that we interview. Votes are in. We have a player that we're going to attempt to interview. I haven't asked yet, but it should be. There's a very good chance that they should accept. If not, we have a backup player as well. Also voted for by our Patreon. And if you have a player that you're like, well, I really want to hear from this guy, there's a very good chance that we could make that happen for you. And there's also a myriad of other benefits as like seeing this episode early, so the people who would want to see it on the Wednesday before the Austin game would be able to. Only the Patreon can do that, and also extra perks in the Discord. Um, yeah, like Devin said, it'll be in the description for anyone interested in doing that. But also, all of our content remains free. We don't want to paywall anything, so we still value the people who have decided not to join the Patreon, which is obviously most of you guys. Very happy to have you guys. It's not just a Patreon only type of thing.
Yeah, everything that Abram said. But there is something that Quakes fans want to see, Abram, and that is the upcoming game versus St. Louis City SC.
Yeah.
Do you wanna talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up. I just had to cough a little bit. Um, so we watched the highlights of the Seattle versus St. Louis game, and St. Louis didn't look very good. Um, it's difficult to go into these games and not be complacent. So I will say that like obviously there's a chance of anything happening. Um, but this game ended 4-1 in favor of Seattle, who are the team that beat us. So there's that to keep in mind. But overall, St. Louis hasn't had the best start to their year. Same with Austin. But like Useni said, they're going into these games like they're taking it one game at a time, but they're gonna treat them like any other opponent. There is no benefit to you know underestimating anyone at this stage. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this game and I feel like we have the upper hand, being in better form, but anything can happen. Anything that you're worried about for this game, Devin?
I think just judging based off of the eye test and the highlights that we saw, Seattle is very defensive. And maybe that's we should give credit to Seattle, or sorry, St. Louis is very defensive. We should give credit to Seattle because obviously they're just a very impactful team, very attacking team. They love to counter. They love to normally sit back and absorb pressure and then counter from that. But they're always dangerous, no matter what Seattle is. And playing against St. Louis, they exposed a lot of cracks. Unfortunate to Denny Bouanga, who also exposed some cracks versus the Earthquakes game. I don't see as much danger from St. Louis. Their only goal came from a very late substitution around the 89th minute. There are some players who are dangerous, but I just don't see any of these specific statistics coming out of St. Louis in particular to really intimidate our back line. Benji Kikanovic or Daniel Muni or Reed Roberts or even Jamar Ricketts, who we thought could have been injured I think it was towards the end of the first half versus LAFC. And
I had asked the Quakes communications team, and they confirmed for me that Ricketts should be okay to play on Wednesday. We'll see if he does, because I don't know. You look at that and you're like, well, he's obviously not, peachy. I would be a little bit worried about like playing him too much after just he looked hurt. I don't know. I don't know what you want.
he
But
wasn't hobbling.
yeah, I mean, he looked to be crying a little bit after he came off. So obviously not a great sign. But if they say he's okay, I mean, we also saw him take a big impact in in preseason, and I was like, "Hey, Jamar, you feeling okay?" And he was like, "Yeah, yeah." Well, I don't know what's up with him. He looks hurt. He's not, and it's a little bit weird, but obviously he is somebody who can provide a big impact in games that he plays in. So, be very happy to have him available.
Yeah, and I think he provides a lot, offensively and defensively. Um, I mean, we can say that about many of our players, but specifically for Jamar Ricketts, he just provides so much of a threat that I think no matter if you put Werner at left wing or Jamar, it's essentially a similar level threat. I don't know. Am I going crazy for that tectonic take, Abram?
I think historically, if we're looking at numbers, I don't think that's a crazy take in terms of points per game. They've looked very good, and I think in terms of how they can get behind the back line, uh, find players in the box, and put defenses on their back foot with their pace. There are similarities, and so I don't think it's crazy to say. Obviously, for me, I prefer Timo Werner, and then Jamar being able to play left back or whatever it is he ends up playing. I like them both to be available at the very least.
Yeah, and as we were watching the stat or the highlights, Sounders versus St. Louis, we had picked up on something in particular, and that's the set pieces against St. Louis. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I mean, anyone who saw the highlights, well, it was also talked about, very broadly across MLS Twitter and stuff, where two of the goals were identical. Where they found Christian Roldan at the back post on corners twice, and they were the same exact goal. One was his head, one was a half volley or a full volley, not sure. Um, but they didn't mark him either time. That's something where it's like, oh, my bad, guys. Make sure to pick him up next time. Make sure he doesn't do that again. Oh, he did it again. Oops, sorry. Come on. And that's another reason why I have a lot of confidence for this match. But like as people who are putting in our opinions online, we have to be cognizant of being complacent, being too cocky, and so we're trying to not say, okay, well we got this, but if you're looking at the numbers and you're looking at what should be the case, I think that we have a very good opportunity to get another 3 points here.
Yeah, I think it's also one of those other things where De Rosario's goal for Seattle exposed a lot of cracks for St. Louis's defense as well because St. Louis was ball watching significantly. I think four of their players surrounding him were ball watching, and De Rosario, his back was basically face to goal, and he still managed to score a far post shot. Um, so with that quality that you see from De Rosario, is almost if not more quality from most of our attacking players. And we don't have to be faced back to goal. We have players like Bolaroo who can absolutely smash a shot in top bins from outside the box if they're not willing to press us. We can take long distance shots. Tess Berkey, who also conceded a shot near post, similar to Hugo Lloris, who are weirdly two of my favorite goalkeepers of all time, apart from Manuel Neuer, that switched to MLS, and now I can't really support them because they play for different teams. But I'm a big fan of both of those goalkeepers, and they scored near post goals. And I think if the Quakes can expose that and just play the way they played versus St. Louis, or play the way they played versus LAFC, maybe we can rack up a similar amount of goals. Or since we have a midweek game versus Austin, we don't really know exactly how that's going to fare when this releases. But maybe there's some rotation there as well. Maybe there's some midweek rotation where we start some of the guys that played versus LAFC, and then we back off a little bit versus St. Louis, and then prepare for Open Cup and whatnot. I'm not exactly sure how Bruce is going to navigate these stretch of saturated game weeks, but I think St. Louis and Austin are easily winnable games based on the fact that their performances are not at all up to par per their fans' expectations.
Yeah, they're definitely winnable as long as we show up. The Quakes have to be there that day. It can't be, the Shakes. It can't be the Tremors. It has to be the San Jose Earthquakes, in all their strength. And that being said, they can't go into both of these games at 100% in terms of their lineup. They do have to be a little bit smart about how they approach the starting lineup for this Austin game, keeping this St. Louis game in mind. Um, but looking at the table here, um, Austin sits at 13th place with 3 losses, 4 draws, and 1 win. St. Louis is doing slightly worse than them with 4 losses, 3 draws, and 1 win. Both of them have a combined 2 wins, not doing well. The only team worse than them right now is Sporting Kansas City, who obviously have 6 losses, are having a very bad year. Hard to see anyone doing worse than them. But in the recent form of St. Louis, they have obviously lost against Seattle. They won their Open Cup game, but that's not super relevant to this match. They drew against Dallas and they drew against New York City. So they do have something about them. It's not like we're playing a team of nobodies here. But if we do show up, if we are in the right headspace, which we've seen this team start to slip a little bit. They lose focus in short lapses. If we can avoid that or minimize that as much as possible, and play our cards right against Austin to still have a full strength team or as close to possible against St. Louis, then we should theoretically win. But of course, anything can happen. Any closing thoughts, Devin?
Don't really have any specific closing thoughts other than, I think this is a very 6 point match week, if that makes sense. If we walk away with 6 additional points, trying to look at Vancouver's schedule here, there could be a chance that we top the Supporter Shield standings over the rest of the league, and as we're 5 points over LAFC right now. I think it's a fun little side stat. The only goal that we conceded against two of the top teams in the league this year was an own goal. No, none of the Western Conference teams, the top three Western Conference teams of last season, has scored a goal against us on their own doing. We conceded that, and unfortunately it came from Reed Roberts. But Vancouver, shutout. San Diego, shutout. LAFC, own goal. They haven't been able to score against us. I'm really excited for this coming week.
100%. With all that being said, we will be back in a week's time to preview the match against Toronto, as well as recap the game against St. Louis and the Open Cup game against Minnesota. That's going to be a very interesting match to see how that goes. It's on a Tuesday, so we'll see. But until then, we'll see you guys next time. Go Quakes.
Go Quakes.